Yo, what's up, everybody, man? We're back with another episode of Built Not Bought, man. It's another episode of Built Not Bought. I appreciate to anybody who tuned in and listened to the first episode, man. I did have somebody actually hit me up. Just a random person hit me up about the episode, and they said it was impactful, and that's really the reason why I do it, man. So shout out to anybody that gave it a stream, and I appreciate any likes, comments, feedback in general, as this is just something that I'm kind of doing for fun. Just kind of trying to figure it out. So all feedback is definitely welcome, and if there's something specific that you want me to talk about, please make sure you mention that in the comments. But basically what the first episode was talking about was just really me laying out the roadmap of behaviors and things that I implemented in my life that really allowed me to change my life, right? Basically, the premise of that was how I went from basically not really having anything to where I'm at now in my life, right? So I went from making like $50,000 to now last year I just made 151. And it all really just starts with yourself. It starts with your mentality, with your mental. We covered a few things in that first episode. Definitely make sure you go check it out. But we basically went over, being accountable, journaling, execution, planning, a couple of other things. I'm not going to recap fully what I talked about in that first episode. Just go check it out. But this next episode, what I really wanted to kind of like hone in on and talk about is having to change yourself. Having to change who you are as a person is such a hard thing to do. And I think a lot of people underestimate how hard it is to implement changes in your life and implement changes in like who you actually are to get to some of these places. But change is a requirement as you get older. You can't continue to be the same person if you want to get and accomplish some of your goals. Those things just require change. They require growth, right? So, just talking about change and how can you go about changing yourself and what's required to change yourself and how I changed myself, right? So I kind of just will start off with like my personal story about how I was able to change myself and change my life and what are some of the, catalysts and things that took place in order for me to do that. So basically for me, right, I ended up having to, at a pretty young age, at 21, I ended up being dropped off in a new state, basically halfway across the U.S. from where I was born and raised, with no cell phone, no laptop. Where I was living, I moved in with my dad at that time. I don't know if I was 20. I think it was 20. I might have been 19, but I think it was 20. So I think it was 20 at the time. Probably was 19 turning 20. So we'll just say I'm 20 at the time. I don't have a laptop. So I don't have I have a cell phone, but I didn't have any cell phone service when I got down there. So I had no way to contact any of my old friends from college or high school when I first got down to Louisiana. Um, my dad had no Wi-Fi. My dad had no cable. So basically what my dad had was satellite TV, one bedroom apartment, by the way, satellite TV. I had my Xbox 360 with me, so I could play like some offline stuff, but like obviously that got boring pretty quickly. So, and what brought me there, I got kicked out of my house when I was like, however old I was, 19 or 20. At that time, I was in college. I was wilding out in college, bro. We're talking like binge drinking. My attendance rate in college was like 40% or 50% of actually even attending the classes. I don't think I got a grade higher than a C in college, and the majority of my courses that I took, I just didn't even complete the classes. Like I just didn't complete them. My GPA was like a 0.5 or just something ludicrous, bro. So obviously my mom wasn't letting that fly. Kicks me out. I go live with my dad in Louisiana. So basically I get down there, one bedroom apartment, like I just mentioned, no Wi-Fi, no cable TV. I don't have my cell phone, so it's really just kind of me and my thoughts, me and what got me there. So basically, the first piece to making change, um, or one important piece to making change, is the environment that you're in. So I had a total environment change. My environment went from me being surrounded by people that I grew up with and friends that I made just by being in proximity to me not knowing a single person in the area where I'm at now. So, like, now I get to choose the people that I'm surrounded by, and those choices were not based off of who I want to be friends with, but those choices of who I'm surrounding myself with are now based off of who is going to help me get to my goals. So that's one piece of like how do you of change of my life and just change in general is your environment. That's what you have to change your environment. If you don't have goals, and then you now all of a sudden have these big goals that you want to do, you have to change your environment and change the people you hang around with to meet those goals, to match that. So that's one thing that really helped me change my identity. Right, was me being in a brand new environment, my environment getting wiped clean, not knowing anybody there, and I had to rebuild my environment from zero, from the ground up. So if you're trying to change yourself, you have to put yourself in an uncomfortable position somehow to rebuild your environment, to rebuild the people that you surround yourself with from the ground up. And don't surround it upon people that are doing the same things that you're currently doing. You're going to want to now surround yourself with people that are doing the things that you want to do, right? Step one. All right, so like we just said, changing my environment, changing your environment is a huge part of changing your identity, of changing yourself. So after you change your environment, now you have to change how you view yourself, right? So what do I mean? What do I mean by that? I'll give you another example of how I've had to change myself in the past. So I've had periods in my life where I've drank alcohol every single day for extended periods of time. I have periods of my life where I used to smoke weed every single day. I've had periods of my life where I used to smoke cigarettes every single day. These are all different habits and different things that I have had to break out of. The way that I've broken out of all of those habits is by changing how I internally identify myself. So I went from being in my head a smoker to I'm not a smoker. Even if I still smoke, I'm not a smoker, right? So how you identify yourself is going to drastically change how your brain operates. So when you're trying to quit smoking, every day you wake up, you need to tell yourself, I'm not a smoker. I don't smoke. And it's not I'm quitting smoking. It's not I don't want to smoke. It's I'm not a smoker. I don't smoke. That is the internal monologue, and that's the identity shift that you need to have with yourself because that implies that it's just not who you are. And that's a very drastic difference from saying I don't want to smoke because I don't want to smoke implies that you are a smoker and you just don't want to do it. And this might seem like a small, silly thing, and something that's trivial. But when it comes to your brain and the power of your brain and the power of your conscious and unconscious, this has a drastic effect on how you process things, how you make decisions, and how your unconscious moves, right? So these are things and these are thought processes that affect your unconscious. So I started telling myself I'm not a smoker. I'm not a smoker, bro. Right? Like this is something I've done, but I'm not a smoker. All right. So that's how I shook off all of those different things. And some of those things were hard to shake off. Like not smoking, getting that monkey off my back and smoking cigarettes, bro. That was tough. That was like not an easy thing to do. That took a lot of discipline, willpower, and like I just said, making that internal choice of me saying, like, I'm not a smoker and I don't smoke. So, boom, we got number one. We have changing your environment, building that up from the ground up. And then we got number two, how do you identify yourself internally, mentally? How do you identify yourself, right? So, those are going to be two, like, really big components to change. The next thing you want to think about are like some of your triggers. So what I mean by triggers, like what are things that make you do or act a certain type of way? And you want to remove those triggers from your life. So once again, when I'm smoking, what's something that makes me want to smoke, bro? Maybe whenever this specific thing happened, it pisses me off and like now I'm about to go smoke. I talked to a customer and they've pissed me off. Like oh man, I gotta go take a smoke break. Okay, cool. So like I have to remove that trigger or I have to look at that a different way so I don't have that trigger in my life. That's another way that you want to basically help bring about change in your life. And honestly, man, the biggest thing is like you just have to be patient with yourself when it comes to change. Change is not easy. Changing your identity, changing yourself as a person is really one of the hardest things that you could do. Right. So you have to be patient with yourself. You have to realize that change is a process. It's not something that happens overnight. It's something that you have to continually invest into day in and day out. And you fake it till you make it. You continue to act this way, do these things, and it's gonna suck at first. Even some of your friends, they're not gonna understand why you're making those changes. It's gonna sting, it's gonna hurt. But I promise in the long run, it's gonna get you to where you wanna be. It's one of those things that you do that 5 years down the road, you look back and you're like, damn, man, I'm really, really glad that I made those choices, that I made these changes in my life, because that's going to help you get to where you want to be. If you don't change who you are, you're not going to get to where you want to be without changing who you are. One of the best things that's probably ever happened to me, man, is like leaving my hometown. That's like this situation of me having to move to Louisiana. It's probably like the best thing that's ever happened to me in my life. Because like I was very immature when I lived in Connecticut. I'm from Connecticut. I was very immature in Connecticut, man. Like my life was just not headed in the right direction. Like I had wrecked a car driving under the influence. I had to get my stomach pumped from drinking before. I was bent. I was just like not going in the right direction. And me moving to Louisiana just really made me grow up. I just had time to reflect on my life, the choices I made, the things that put me where they put me, and how I got there. And I made changes. I made mental changes to who I was, to who I wanted to be, and it took time, but it was just me, myself, and I. And that's kind of like making me think about another thing, man. Like really, to make these changes, you have to have time by yourself. You have to isolate. Like in order to really change yourself, you have to have at least like 30 days, 60 days. You need to have this time period of just solitude, of you just doing your own thing by yourself, locking in so you can really understand like who you are, what you want, and being by yourself. Because like being surrounded by friends you grew up with, bro, like it's cool. But like if that friend group doesn't mature and change as well, you're gonna always be stuck in your teenage identity. And your teenage identity that you had is an identity that was shaped by a person that didn't have responsibilities and was still exploring the world and who didn't know what was what. So you can't keep that same teenage identity as you go into your 30s because like that's not where you're at in life anymore. In your 30s you have responsibilities, like yeah, not everybody does, but a lot of people in their 30s have some they have you have more responsibilities than you had when you were a teenager. So like at the end of the day, if your friend group doesn't mature and they're still doing the same stuff, then like you have to remove yourself at some point. Otherwise, like that, your teenage identity is going to continue to follow you. And if that identity follows you, it's going to be very hard for you to make changes in your life to be the person that you want to be. So at some point, yeah, you might have to have those tough conversations where you just slowly remove yourself from the group and kind of like do your own thing. But once again, like that's something that's going to very drastically benefit you later on in life, and it'd be one of those decisions that you're just really glad that you made. So this is not going to be a long one, man. This is just going to be a little quick, short one. I figured after what I talked about previously, just doing a quick branch off into like identity and how to change your identity would be really good. If you want to read a book that kind of dives into identity a little bit, I think they talk about identity and change in Atomic Habits. So that's a book that you can read that will just talk about how your habits shaping what you do on the daily basis, how your habits shape you as a person, and how you can go about changing your identity. So go ahead, check that out. And we're gonna be back. We're gonna be back with another episode of Built Not Bought next week. So this was episode 2, man. Once again, episode 2 is just really about identity, right? Like how do you change, what is your internal identity? How do you change your internal identity? And just some small, and a little bit of my experience with my internal